She was a single mom, barely surviving, fired by a billionaire CEO without warning. But what he didn't know, her daughter was watching, and she had a plan that would not only expose his darkest secrets, but bring an entire empire to its knees. This isn't just a story about revenge. This is about power, silence, and the unstoppable strength of a mother who refused to stay broken. Stick around, because the twist that breaks him is something no one saw coming. This is the story of the poor mom the CEO tried to erase, and the daughter who made him regret it forever. Before we dive deeper, drop a comment below and tell us, where in the world are you watching this from? Rain streaked across the glass windows of Ashcroft Industries, a sprawling monolith of glass and steel in the heart of Manhattan. Inside, fluorescent lights glared down on rows of cubicles, humming softly above the shuffle of paper and muted clicks of keyboards. It was Friday, 5:15. Most employees had already packed up, eager to escape into the weekend. But Clara Jennings remained at her desk, eyes red from staring at the screen, fingers trembling as they moved across her keyboard. She was a quiet fixture in the accounts department, always on time, always polite, never absent. 42 years old, she had worked for Ashcroft for 11 of them, balancing invoices and keeping track of receivables with methodical precision. She didn't complain, didn't gossip, didn't miss a deadline. What most of her co-workers didn't know was that she worked 2 other part-time jobs, and that she lived in a tiny 1-bedroom apartment in the Bronx with her daughter, Ava. Clara leaned back, pinching the bridge of her nose. A migraine had started behind her eyes hours ago, but she pushed it down. Rent was due, Ava needed new shoes for school, and groceries were already thin. Her phone vibrated. A text from Ava lit up the screen. "Mom, are you almost done? I made soup, I can reheat it if it's cold." Red Clara smiled, typing back with stiff fingers. "Almost done, sweetheart. Save me a bowl." She was about to power down her computer when her office phone rang, an internal line. She stared at it, surprised. No one called this late. "Clara Jennings," she answered, voice cautious. "Miss Jennings," a man's voice replied crisply. "Mr. Ashcroft would like to see you. Now." Clara blinked. "Mr. Ashcroft, yes, 45th floor. Conference room C." Right away, the line went dead. She stood slowly, confused. She'd never even seen Maxwell Ashcroft in person. He was a name on memos, a face in shareholder updates, the CEO, billionaire, untouchable. Clara smoothed her blouse, checked her hair in the darkened monitor, and took the elevator to the 45th floor. The air up here was different, colder, more expensive. Minimalist art hung on the walls, and a receptionist eyed her like she didn't belong. "Conference room C," the woman said stiffly, pointing down the hall. Clara walked slowly, each step echoing too loud. Her heels clicked on the polished floors. Her palms were damp. When she reached the door, she hesitated, then knocked softly. "Come in." Maxwell Ashcroft sat at the head of a long obsidian table, flanked by 2 executives. He didn't stand or smile. Late 40s, clean-shaven, broad-shouldered, in a navy suit that probably cost more than Clara's monthly income. His gaze was sharp, clinical, like a surgeon about to make an incision. "You wanted to see me?" she asked carefully. "Have a seat." She obeyed, glancing at the men on either side of him. One flipped open a manila folder. Another was typing on a sleek tablet. Maxwell folded his hands. "We've completed a thorough review of departmental expenses," he began. "And as part of our restructuring strategy, we're making targeted reductions in administrative personnel." Clara's chest tightened. "I don't. What does that mean?" "It means," Maxwell said evenly, "your position is being eliminated effective immediately." The room tilted. "I don't understand. I've never been written up. I meet all my deadlines. This isn't performance-based," he cut in. "It's purely financial. We're consolidating. This decision was finalized yesterday." Her throat went dry. "But I've been here for over a decade. My daughter, You'll receive 2 weeks severance," one of the executives interrupted, sliding a paper toward her. "If you sign this, we can process it by Monday." Clara stared at the paper. The letters blurred. 2 weeks. That would barely cover rent. Her fingers gripped the edge of the table. "Please," she whispered. "I'm a single mom. I work nights too. I need this job." Maxwell's expression didn't change. I understand this is difficult, but we have to make decisions that serve the company's future. He stood, signaling the end of the meeting. The silence was brutal. Clara rose slowly, numb. She didn't sign the paper. She didn't speak. She just walked out, her chest burning, eyes wet, legs stiff as wool. The elevator ride down felt endless. That night, she barely touched her soup. Ava sat across from her, watching quietly. 14, thin, smart as a whip, with her mother's sharp cheekbones and solemn eyes. "Mom," she asked softly. Clara forced a smile. "I'm okay, baby, just tired." Ava didn't believe her, but didn't press. Clara went to bed early, but sleep never came. The next morning, while her mother slept in for the first time in weeks, Ava took the subway to Midtown. She clutched a folder tightly in her arms and wore her best hoodie, the one without holes. She'd never been in a building this tall, but she found the receptionist. She asked politely, "I need to speak to Mr. Ashcroft." The woman scoffed. "Do you have an appointment?" "No," Ava said, "but he needs to see this." She held out the folder. Inside were sketches, designs, concepts, financial projections in Ava's careful handwriting. A school project originally, but one she'd poured her heart into. "It's about his company," Ava said. "It's important." The receptionist eyed her with irritation. "I'll pass it along." "No," Ava said, surprising even herself. "I need to give it to him myself." The woman opened her mouth to object. Just as Maxwell Ashcroft stepped into the lobby mid-call, Ava saw him, and Maxwell saw her. She walked straight toward him, folder outstretched, eyes locked on his. "I'm Ava Jennings," she said. "You fired my mom yesterday. But I think you made a mistake." Maxwell blinked, lowering his phone. "What is this?" She handed him the folder. "Something you need to see." He opened it, flipping through the pages, and paused. For the first time in years, something shifted behind Maxwell Ashcroft's eyes. Not annoyance, not indifference, but something else, something he hadn't felt in a long time. Maxwell stood still in the center of the lobby, flipping through the folder Ava had handed him. Pages filled with hand-drawn prototypes, annotated revenue models, and sharp, structured concepts unfolded before him. They were a little messy, sure, a few spelling errors, but beneath the surface something was unmistakable, raw, clever, and painfully sincere. He glanced up. Ava stood with her arms crossed, chin slightly lifted. Her clothes were second-hand. Her backpack was fraying at the seams, but her stare was unflinching. "You said I made a mistake," he said carefully. "What mistake is that?" "You let someone go who's more valuable than half the people in your corner offices," Eva replied. "She's the only reason I've made it this far. She teaches me everything. How to work hard, how to be decent, how to never give up." Maxwell's jaw tightened. "And this?" he asked, lifting the folder. "What exactly am I looking at?" "A solution to your company's biggest problem," Ava said. "You just don't know it yet." He raised a brow, amused despite himself. "You're 14, 15 in October. You think you know Ashcroft Industries better than I do. I think I understand people better than you do." The words hung in the air like a thrown knife. Maxwell opened his mouth, then closed it. He looked down at the folder again, slowly flipping another page. The sketches outlined a redesign of the company's failing mobile platform, a customer loyalty initiative, and a suggestion to partner with local small businesses for cross-promotional campaigns. It was something his marketing department had failed to deliver on for over a year. "How long did this take you?" "About 3 weeks. After school." He tapped the last page, where a rough spreadsheet broke down costs and growth projections over 6 months. "You did these numbers yourself?" "Yeah," she said. "Mom taught me how to budget when I was 8. Maxwell snapped the folder shut. "Come with me." Ava blinked. "Where?" "To my office." She hesitated for a moment, then followed. Upstairs, the atmosphere was different. Glass walls, leather chairs, spotless marble floors. Ava stayed close behind him, eyes darting across abstract art and silent, sharp-dressed executives who barely looked her way. Maxwell's assistant stood when they entered. "No calls," he said without looking at her. Inside, his office stretched wide, with a view of the skyline that made Ava feel like she was on the edge of a spaceship. Maxwell gestured for her to sit. She did. He leaned against his desk, arms crossed, watching her. "You realize this is highly irregular." "So was firing someone at 5:30 on a Friday without warning." She shot back. He tilted his head, impressed despite himself. "You're bold. That's dangerous in business." "No," she said. "It's necessary, especially when you're the only one speaking up." Maxwell didn't reply. He picked up the folder again and flipped through it slower this time, nodding to himself. Then a knock. His assistant cracked the door. "Sir, your 11 o'clock is here. Reschedule it." The door closed. Ava watched him carefully. "You didn't think anyone would challenge you, did you?" "I've had board members challenge me. Investors, lawyers, you're different." "Why?" "Because you don't have anything to lose." She looked away. "Actually, I have everything to lose." He paused. "I take it your mother doesn't know you're here. She thinks I'm at the library. And what would she say if she found out you marched into my building and demanded to be heard?" "She'd probably cry," Ava said softly. "Then she'd ground me." Maxwell chuckled, a small, surprised sound. Then he picked up the office phone. "Get HR on the line and legal." Ava's eyebrows rose. "Why?" "Because if I use anything from this folder, even a sentence, I'm not getting sued by a 15-year-old. I'm not looking for money," she said. "I just want you to see her, really see her." His expression darkened slightly. "She was invisible," Ava continued. "You didn't even know her name when you fired her, did you?" Maxwell didn't answer. That night, Clara noticed Ava was quiet. Too quiet. They sat on the couch watching an old sitcom rerun. Ava's textbook lay unopened on her lap. Clara gently reached over and squeezed her daughter's hand. "You okay, baby?" Ava gave a slow nod. "You should be proud of yourself, you know." Clara smiled tiredly. "I am of you." Ava leaned into her side. "No, I mean, for everything, for holding it all together." Clara kissed the top of her head. The next morning her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered hesitantly. "Miss Jennings, this is Mr. Ashcroft's office. He's requested you come in this morning for a meeting." Her chest went tight. "There must be a mistake," she said. "I don't work there anymore." "The request was very specific," the voice replied. "Conference room B." 9 a.m. Clara hung up and stared at the wall for a long moment. Ava stepped into the kitchen, backpack slung over one shoulder. She stopped when she saw her mother's face. "What's wrong?" Clara shook her head. "I don't know. They want me to come in," Eva swallowed hard. "Do you want me to come with you?" Clara stared at her daughter. For a brief second, a flicker of suspicion crossed her face, then softened into something else. "Worry, wonder. No," she said. "I think I should handle this alone." An hour later, Clara stood outside conference room B. Her palms were damp again. Her legs felt like glass. Inside, Maxwell sat alone at the table. This time he stood. "Miss Jennings," he said, "please have a seat." She did, her posture rigid. "I won't keep you long," he said. "I've reviewed your employment file. 11 years, 0 complaints. Consistent excellence. I also reviewed the layoffs list. You were added last minute." "That was a mistake." Clara blinked, stunned. I don't understand." "I'm offering you your position back," Maxwell said. "Effective immediately. Same salary and a raise of 10%, full benefits." Clara's mouth parted. "Why?" she whispered. He paused, then smiled slightly. "Let's just say someone opened my eyes." Outside the room, Ava stood behind a pillar, listening. But Maxwell wasn't done. "One more thing," he said. "I'd like to talk to you about a new internal initiative, something innovative. It'll require some creativity, vision. We could use someone who understands people." Clara stared at him, speechless. And for the first time in a long time, something inside her began to believe that maybe, just maybe, her life was about to change. But before she could respond, the door burst open. A security guard stepped inside, looking flustered. "Mr. Ashcroft," he said urgently, "you need to come with me." "Right now," Maxwell frowned. "What's going on?" The man hesitated. "There's someone downstairs asking for you. Says he's your son." Maxwell's expression shattered. For a man who controlled $1 billion empire, who kept boardrooms silent with a glance, who had bulldozed competitors with ruthless precision, he suddenly looked unsteady. Clara leaned forward. "Is everything all right?" But he didn't respond. He simply turned, walked out of the conference room, and disappeared down the hallway without another word. Ava ducked around the corner just in time, heart pounding. She hadn't heard this part before. Maxwell Ashcroft had a son. She debated going after him. But something about the tension in his eyes made her stop. She stayed hidden, listening, uncertain. Maxwell reached the elevator, stepping inside like a man bracing for impact. The ride to the lobby was slow, though his mind was racing. Memories clawed their way to the surface, ones he had buried so deep they had fossilized. When the doors opened, a young man stood waiting near the reception desk. Early 20s, tall, wiry, shoulders stiff beneath a denim jacket. His jaw was clenched, his hands jammed in his pockets. His eyes, green, piercing, locked onto Maxwell's the moment he stepped out. "Liam," Maxwell said, his voice low. The young man didn't smile. It's been a while, 7 years to be exact. The lobby was too quiet, too bright. The receptionist watched with careful disinterest, pretending not to eavesdrop. Maxwell gestured toward the hallway. "Let's talk somewhere private." Liam followed, silent, his boots heavy on the marble. They entered a side conference room. Maxwell shut the door behind them and turned, arms folded. "You shouldn't be here," Liam gave a dry laugh. "Yeah, I didn't think I was ever welcome anyway." Maxwell flinched. "What do you want?" "I want answers," Liam said. "I want to know why you never called. Why you sent a check every birthday but never once picked up a phone." Maxwell's jaw tightened. "I didn't know what to say." "That's crap and you know it." A long pause. Maxwell moved to the window, staring out at the skyline. The city stretched endlessly, indifferent and vast. His reflection in the glass looked older than he remembered. "Your mother made it clear I wasn't wanted in your life. She gave up because you did." Liam snapped, "and I stopped waiting. But then I saw you on the news. New contracts. Another merger. A charity gala. Your empire's still growing, and I'm still wondering why I'm not even a footnote." Maxwell turned. "You're not a footnote. Could have fooled me." The tension between them was a thing with teeth. Liam reached into his jacket and tossed something onto the table. A faded photo. A little boy, no older than 5, standing in front of a school science fair project. The caption read, "First place Liam Ashcroft." Maxwell stared at it for a long time. "I never stopped thinking about you," he said quietly. "I just didn't know how to fix what I broke." "You start by showing up," Liam said. "It's a little late for the father routine now. But maybe it's not too late for something." "What do you mean?" Liam pulled out a small envelope and slid it across the table. "I didn't come here for money. I came here because I have an idea, a real one, something I've been building for over a year, but I can't get meeting. No one takes a 23-year-old coder seriously, unless he has a Stanford degree and a trust fund. And you think I'll back you? I think you owe me 5 minutes." Maxwell opened the envelope and pulled out a neatly folded pitch summary. An app for underrepresented freelance workers, offering them legal protections, fast payments and micro-investment tools. A full ecosystem for people living paycheck to paycheck, for people like Clara, like Ava. He read in silence. Liam stood, hands still in his pockets. "You want to prove you care about something? Start here." Without waiting for a reply, he turned and walked out. Upstairs, Clara waited alone in the conference room, twisting her hands in her lap. She checked her phone. No new messages. Just a photo of Ava at 13, hair in braids, wide grin, holding a homemade birthday cake they'd baked together because the store-bought ones were too expensive. She stood to leave, unsure what had just happened. In the hallway, Ava stepped out from the shadows. Her face was pale, eyes wide. "Mom," Clara startled. "Ava, what are you doing here?" "I came to make sure you were okay." Clara exhaled and wrapped her in a tight hug. "Something happened," Ava whispered. "With Mr. Ashcroft. I think it was personal." Clara pulled back. "What did you do, sweetheart?" "Nothing. I overheard something. He has a son, a grown one." Clara blinked. "He never mentioned." He looked scared, like everything just cracked open. Clara chewed the inside of her cheek. "Maybe he's not as cold as we thought." They left together, quiet, stepping into the sunlight outside. But the storm hadn't passed. That night, Maxwell sat alone in his penthouse. Liam's pitch spread across his desk, Ava's folder beside it. 2 storms from 2 different lives, both demanding something more than apologies. His phone buzzed. A message from Ava. "You saw her today. You saw her today. What are you going to do about it?" He stared at the screen. Then he opened a secure company portal and began typing a memo. A new division, a pilot project. He wrote until the sky outside went black. But before he could finish, another message popped up. This time from an internal Ashcroft email address. Subject urgent. Internal complaint against Maxwell Ashcroft. His stomach dropped. He opened it. A single line. You've been warned, walk away from Jennings. Or we take it all public. His fingers froze on the keyboard. Maxwell stared at the message on his screen, every instinct firing. You've been warned. Walk away from Jennings. Or we take it all public. No name, no signature. Just a threat, loaded with quiet venom. He reread it 3 times, then leaned back in his chair, heart beating slow and hard. Outside the window, the city glimmered, but inside the room, a chill crept down his spine. Who would send this? Clara was a low-level employee. A cog, quiet, unassuming. She wasn't political, didn't climb, didn't stir waters. So why would helping her and her daughter spark blackmail? He opened the internal mail tracker. The sender had routed it through 3 proxy accounts, all within Ashcroft Industries. Someone inside the company. Someone who knew his schedule, his inbox, his weaknesses, and worse, someone who'd been watching. He locked the screen and stood pacing. For the first time in years, Maxwell Ashcroft was uncertain. Across town, Clara and Ava were cleaning out the hallway closet in their apartment. Winter coats that no longer fit. A space heater that sparked once and had to be unplugged mid-blizzard. The scent of dust and fabric softener lingered in the air. Are you sure you're okay? Ava asked. I'm fine, Clara said, forcing a smile. Just trying to make sense of everything. He offered your job back. With a raise. That's something, right? Clara paused, then nodded. It is, but part of her was uneasy. The sudden kindness, the reversal. It didn't feel like corporate mercy. It felt personal, and in her experience, personal motives never came without strings. Ava leaned against the doorframe, chewing her lip. I didn't tell you something, she said. I saw something, heard something. Clara looked over. I saw him, Mr. Ashcroft, with his son. Clara blinked. His son. He didn't look happy to see him. I think it shook him. Clara sat on the couch thinking. What kind of man hid a son for years? And what had Liam said that rattled him so deeply? The next morning, Maxwell arrived at the office early. Before the light fully broke across the skyline. He sat in his office waiting. Not for a meeting, not for a phone call, for them, whoever had sent the message. And sure enough, at 8:06 a.m., the elevator chimed. Douglas Fairbanks walked in, CFO, 25 years in the company. Grey hair, polished glasses, a smile so polite it could cut glass. Max, he said, voice chipper. Early day, I could ask you the same. Douglas set his briefcase down, loosened his tie slightly. There's a board call this afternoon. Legal wants to revisit our union strategy. Maxwell nodded, then gestured to the chair across from him. Sit, we need to talk. Douglas raised a brow but complied. Maxwell tapped a few keys on his laptop and turned the screen toward him. The threatening email. Douglas read it, then looked up. Well, he said smoothly, that's unsettling. Maxwell watched him carefully. You recognize the routing path. I've seen it used before, internal smokescreen. Usually compliance or legal when they want to move without eyes. But this wasn't compliance, and it wasn't legal. Douglas leaned back. Max, you've made a few enemies in your time. Someone's trying to warn you off. Could be about Jennings, could be something else. No, Maxwell said. It's about her and her daughter. Douglas's eyes sharpened. Why do they matter so much to you? Maxwell didn't answer. Douglas stood slowly. Whatever this is, he said, be careful. When old blood smells disruption, it doesn't just bark, it bites. He walked out. Maxwell sat still for a long moment, then pulled up Clara's file again. Her resume, her department reviews, her emergency contacts. And buried at the bottom, he found it. A complaint filed 6 years ago. Anonymous, marked unsubstantiated, buried under HR clutter. Claim unfair salary disparities in the accounts department, favoritism, wage suppression against working mothers. It had gone nowhere, but it was there, and Clara had submitted it. He stared at it. So she had tried once before. Later that evening, Clara received a knock at her door. She opened it and found Liam Ashcroft standing on the front step. Hi, he said. Clara blinked. You're Maxwell's son. She hesitated, then stepped aside. Come in. Ava looked up from the table and dropped her pencil. You, me. He sat on the couch, hands clasped. I need to warn you, he said. Something's happening. Inside his company, people don't want you close to him, and they're willing to get dirty to keep it that way. Clara's eyes narrowed. Why? Because you're the first person to ever make him pause, and you. I'm not here for him, Liam said. I'm here because what he did to you, that was wrong. I can't fix it, but I can help make sure it doesn't happen again. Ava sat forward. What are you saying? I'm saying I want to work with you, he said. Not for pity, for justice, for the people who never get seen. Clara stared at him, then nodded slowly. All right. But just as Liam opened his mouth to continue, the apartment went dark. Power out. Ava rushed to the window. The streetlights were still on. Only their apartment had gone out. Ava turned, voice shaky. Mom, then they heard it, a car engine. Idle, right outside. And a camera flashed through the front window. Someone was watching. The apartment was silent, except for the soft hum of that idling engine outside. Clara moved quickly, drawing the blinds with trembling hands. Ava, get away from the window. Ava obeyed without question, her eyes locked on her mother's face. Clara rarely looked afraid, but now her expression was sharp with urgency. Liam stood up, stepping toward the door, but Clara grabbed his wrist. No, she said. Not until we know who it is. Outside, the car's headlights flicked off. Then it pulled away, slow, deliberate, its tires whispering against wet asphalt. Ava broke the silence. Was that for us? Clara exhaled shakily. It wasn't a coincidence. Liam moved toward the kitchen and opened the circuit breaker panel. Power was cut from inside the building, he muttered. This wasn't an outage. Someone flipped the switch. He turned, his eyes dark. They're trying to scare you, Clara nodded. It's working. But Ava's voice rang clear, then scare them back. Liam gave a bitter smile. You've got your mom's fire. Ava crossed her arms. No, she has mine. They stayed up that night alert, the lights from their phones casting long shadows against the walls. Liam left at 3 a.m., slipping quietly out the back exit, promising to keep watch. By morning, the power was back. But Clara felt it in her bones. Something had shifted, and there would be no going back. That same morning, Maxwell arrived at the office to find a slim white envelope waiting on his desk. No name, no return address. Inside, 3 glossy photographs. Photo 1, Ava entering the Ashcroft building, the day she'd confronted him. Photo 2, Clara hugging Ava outside their building. Photo 3, a zoomed-in shot of Clara's resume, opened on his laptop. Taken over his shoulder, he stared at them, the blood draining from his face. This wasn't just surveillance. It was inside access. He slammed the photos onto his desk and marched to the elevator. Where are you going? His assistant asked, startled. Legal, he growled. Now. Downstairs, Maxwell strode into the general counsel's office without knocking. Angela Choi, chief legal officer, looked up from her morning tea. Maxwell. To what do I owe thee? He threw the photographs onto her desk. Her smile faded. Where did these come from? She asked. They were on my desk when I walked in. Angela's eyes moved quickly over the images, her fingers tense. This is serious. This is internal surveillance, unauthorized. Whoever did this is breaking 6 privacy laws. Maxwell folded his arms, and Angela met his eyes. It means someone wants you compromised. Quietly, he pointed at the photos. They're watching Jennings. They've crossed a line. Angela leaned back slowly. Then you need to decide something, Max. Are you trying to fix what you broke? Or are you still trying to play the game and win? Maxwell didn't answer, because the truth was, he didn't know anymore. That evening, Clara received another unexpected visitor. This time it wasn't Liam. It was Douglas Fairbanks. He stood on her doorstep, trench coat damp from rain, holding a bottle of wine and wearing a rehearsed neighborly smile. Miss Jennings, he said, I hope I'm not intruding. Clara narrowed her eyes. How do you know where I live? He chuckled. I'm the CFO of a multi-billion-dollar company. We know where everyone lives. Her jaw tightened. What do you want? Douglas raised the wine. Just a chat. About your future. About your daughter's future. She didn't move. He leaned in slightly. Because if you keep letting Maxwell drag you into his mess, that future's going to disappear. Now she moved, closing the door in his face. Or tried to. Douglas blocked it with his shoe. You're smarter than this, he said, his voice lower now. No more smile, just ice. You had a nice, quiet exit. 2 weeks severance, a clean record. Now you're back in the building making noise, and suddenly Max is cancelling contracts and digging into files we buried years ago." "You mean the complaint?" Clara said. Douglas smiled thinly. "It was handled. No, it was hidden." His gaze darkened. "This is your final warning, Miss Jennings. Let it go, or we'll show the world who you really are." Clara stepped closer, voice steady. "Go ahead, show them. Because the only thing you'll be proving is how scared you are of a woman who won't stay silent." Douglas stared at her for a long, hateful moment, then turned and walked away. Clara shut the door behind him, locked it, then leaned against the frame, chest heaving. Ava appeared behind her. "Mom," Clara straightened. "Pack a bag," Ava blinked. "Why? Where are we going?" Clara looked her in the eyes. "Somewhere they won't find us." Later that night, in a worn motel room outside the city, Clara sat with her laptop open. Ava curled beside her. A single lamp cast soft yellow light across the bedspread. She pulled up the old HR database, the one she'd saved to a thumb drive before her original departure. And there it was. The buried complaint, but not just hers, 18 others. Women, mostly single mothers, all from the same department. All restructured, all silenced. Ava leaned over her shoulder. "What are you going to do?" Clara didn't blink. "I'm going to burn it all down." The file stared back at Clara like a ghost from the past. 18 names lined up in neat clinical rows, each followed by the same keywords: restructured, cost-cutting, position eliminated. But Clara remembered these women. Denise, the single mom who used to bring extra snacks for the interns. Raquel, who stayed late every Friday just to afford her sister's meds. Angela W., not to be confused with Legal's Angela Choi, who trained half the department and was let go without so much as a farewell email. Clara had always suspected her case wasn't isolated, but seeing it laid out, systemic, deliberate, made her stomach turn. Ava leaned closer. "We have to show someone." Clara nodded. "We will, but we can't go to HR. Not legal, they're in it. So who do we go to?" Clara hesitated. Then she opened her contacts and typed a number she hadn't called in almost a decade. Vanessa Haynes, a former HR manager. Quiet. Let go under performance review after pushing back on upper management. Clara hit call. The phone rang twice, then, "Hello, Vanessa?" "It's Clara Jennings," a long silence. "I remember you," Vanessa said cautiously. "It's been years." "I found something," Clara said. "I think they buried more than we thought." Another pause, then Vanessa's voice dropped low. "Where are you?" Clara told. Vanessa arrived at the motel an hour later, dressed plainly, eyes scanning the lot before she knocked. She didn't say much at first, just hugged Clara tightly, like they were survivors of the same wreck. They sat together on the bed while Ava pulled up tea from the vending machine. Clara showed her the files. Vanessa's jaw set as she scrolled. "They used my clearance to seal some of these. After they fired me, they used your name," Eva asked. Vanessa nodded. "Standard tactic. Makes it look like compliance came from the bottom, not the top. Can we prove it?" "I can," Vanessa said. "I backed up everything before I left, and I know how to unlock the metadata trail. If we can expose who signed off on each of these terminations, you'll have leverage." "Against Maxwell?" Clara asked. "No," Vanessa said. "Against Douglas. He's the one who orchestrated the layoffs. Maxwell's hands were technically clean, but I doubt he ever bothered to look below the surface." Clara sat back. "He's been trying to make it right, but I think someone inside is setting him up." Vanessa nodded. "Douglas always knew how to move the knife and let someone else take the fall." Then her eyes narrowed. "If you're serious about this, we're going to need backup, someone with reach." "I think I know someone," Clara said. "His name's Liam, Maxwell's son." Vanessa raised an eyebrow. "The prodigal? He's not like his father," Clara said. "He's trying to build something honest. He's on our side. Then tell him we're going public." Meanwhile, back at Ashcroft Tower, Maxwell stood at the floor-to-ceiling window, his reflection fractured by the city lights. His mind was a storm. Clara was gone. No sign of her. No response to his emails. Her company login had been deactivated. Her phone straight to voicemail, and he knew Douglas was behind it. He could feel it, but proving it would be another thing entirely. The knock came at 9:12 p.m. Angela Choi entered without waiting. She had a folder in her hand and a storm in her eyes. "You need to see this," she said, dropping the file on his desk. Maxwell opened it. Photos again, but not surveillance, screenshots. From a private server he didn't even know existed, HR emails, approval chains, termination strategies, written in careful euphemisms. Douglas's name over and over. Angela crossed her arms. This is what she's digging up, and if she goes public with it, Ashcroft Industries is going to lose more than stock value. Maxwell looked up sharply. She, Clara, Angela nodded. "I got this from a friend in compliance. Word is, she's working with someone who used to be in our HR team, someone who knows where the skeletons are. And you're telling me this now. I'm telling you because I think you want to do the right thing, but you're running out of time." Maxwell closed the folder slowly. "Let them bring it," he said. "We'll face it." Angela's eyes widened. "You'd let them torch the company, I'd let them rebuild it the right way." Angela stared at him. Then for the first time she smiled, just barely. "You really have changed." But change wouldn't come easy. The next morning, Clara, Ava, Vanessa and Liam met in a quiet Brooklyn cafe with laminated menus and flickering neon lights. A laptop sat open on the table, cables snaking out into portable drives. Liam looked tired, his hoodie wrinkled, but his eyes were sharp. "I've gone through the infrastructure for Ashcroft's internal mail system," he said, "and I found a log of all flagged deletions. Every restructured employee, every one of the 18 cases, had their file flagged by the same user ID." He turned the laptop around. "User D. Fairbanks." Vanessa leaned in. "That's enough to make this go public, but we'll need a delivery method." "I can build a clean microsite," Liam said. "Anonymous, documents, testimonies, everything. We drop it with the press and let it spread." Clara hesitated. "And what about retaliation?" "They won't touch you," Vanessa said. "Not after this." "Not with all the eyes it'll bring." Clara looked at Ava. Her daughter, who'd stood up to a billionaire, who had faced down surveillance and threats and still sat there with steady eyes, ready to risk everything. Clara nodded. "Do it within hours." The site was live. It was titled simply, "Voices They Tried to Silence." By morning it had gone viral. A trending hashtag, dozens of reposts, HR testimonies, termination emails. One by one media outlets picked it up. By noon, Maxwell's phone was exploding. Board members, shareholders, lawyers. Douglas Fairbanks stormed into his office at 12:37 p.m., red-faced and breathing hard. "What the hell is going on?" Maxwell looked up from his desk, calm. "You tell me." Douglas slammed a printed copy of the site onto the desk. "This is a hit job. You think this helps anyone? You're going to lose this company." "No," Maxwell said. "You are." Douglas froze. Security entered the room. Maxwell stood. "You're suspended, effective immediately. Legal is opening a full internal investigation. And I've already forwarded everything to Federal Labor Authority." Douglas turned pale. "You're not going to survive this," he said quietly. "You just made enemies you don't even know exist." Maxwell stepped closer. "I'm not afraid of men who hide behind threats. You should be." Security led Douglas out, his footsteps dragging like a man condemned. Maxwell exhaled, then turned back to his window. The sun had broken through the clouds. The boardroom was silent. 12 high-backed leather chairs, all filled with faces Maxwell had known for years, some since the beginning of Ashcroft Industries. They looked at him not with admiration, not with loyalty, but with measured suspicion. The kind of suspicion that crept in when money was at stake. The blinds were half drawn. The late afternoon sun cut slanted lines across the polished table. Someone coughed, another shifted uncomfortably. Maxwell stood at the head of the room, hands resting lightly on the table. "The documents are real," he said, voice even. "The terminations were systemic. The wage suppression, the cover-ups, all of it, buried in reports you were never meant to see. And you're admitting this now?" asked Eleanor Price, the board chair, her pearl earrings swaying as she leaned forward. "You're implicating your own administration." "I'm exposing it," Maxwell replied, "because I let it happen, because I didn't look closely enough. That's on me." "Do you understand what this is going to do to our stock value?" barked Martin Lowe, one of the older board members. "The company's name is all over the press. We've had 5 clients pull contracts this morning alone." Maxwell turned to him. "And how many more would have left if we'd continued protecting people like Fairbanks?" A tense silence followed. Eleanor folded her hands. So what's your plan? Maxwell took a breath. We don't fight the truth. We own it. We issue a full public statement. We announce an independent audit. We make reparations to the employees wronged, starting with rehiring those still willing to return. Reparations? Lowe scoffed. You want us to pay people we've already let go? Maxwell's voice hardened. Yes, Eleanor tilted her head. And what if some of those people won't come back? Maxwell looked her dead in the eye. Then we learn from them. The boardroom remained still, the weight of the decision pressing against the walls like a slow-building storm. Eleanor eventually nodded. You have one shot, Maxwell. Clean house, make this right, or we'll find someone who will. Maxwell didn't flinch. I won't let you down. Outside the boardroom, his assistant was waiting. There's someone to see you, she said. Two of them, actually. She stepped aside and Clara entered. Behind her, Vanessa. Both women stood tall, composed. Clara wore a soft grey blouse and simple earrings. Vanessa had a tablet clutched against her chest. You asked for help, Clara said. We came. Maxwell looked between them, then gestured to the conference room. Come in. There's something I want to offer. Back in Brooklyn. Ava was at school when her name was called over the intercom. She blinked, confused, and made her way to the front office. Your mom asked me to pick you up, Liam said, standing just outside the doors. Ava squinted. Why, he smiled. Thought you might want to see something. They took the subway, then walked 2 blocks to a community center in Midtown. Formerly an empty building, now swarming with quiet energy. Inside, volunteers were painting, rearranging furniture, bringing in crates of laptops. What is this? Ava asked. A launch site, Liam said. Ashcroft's funding it. Clara's overseeing it. A pilot program. He gestured toward the far end of the room, where Clara stood giving instructions to 2 organizers, pointing to a whiteboard labeled The Break Room Project, empowering the forgotten workforce. Ava's mouth parted. She's running it? She built it, Liam said. Vanessa's handling legal operations, and you? He held out a crisp folder. Ava opened it. Inside was a letter. Congratulations. You've been selected as a student consultant for Breakroom's youth initiative. You've got a desk upstairs, Liam added. MacBook sketchpad, dual monitors. Your mom insisted. Ava swallowed hard, her throat stung. I thought we were done, she whispered. After all the threats, Liam shook his head. You pushed back, and you changed everything. She looked toward her mother, and Clara, at that moment, looked up and caught her daughter's eyes. The smile that spread across her face was quiet, steady, and filled with something Ava hadn't seen in a long time. Pride. The next morning, the Ashcroft Industries website featured a letter from the CEO himself. A real one. Hey, to our employees, our clients, and the public, we failed you. But we are going to rebuild by listening to the voices we ignored. Below the letter, photos of Clara, Vanessa, and several other reinstated employees now leading a new division focused on equitable labor. But not everyone was thrilled. At an upscale bar in the financial district, Douglas Fairbanks sat alone, eyes glued to the television above the counter. Ashcroft's name flashed across the screen again and again. Ashcroft Whistleblower Program goes live. Her CEO partners with former employees to reform company. Douglas Fairbanks under investigation for workplace misconduct. He clenched his jaw, took a long drink, and muttered under his breath. It's not over. Back at the community center, Liam's phone buzzed. He checked the screen, unknown number. Just one message. You're next. Liam stared at the screen, thumbs hovering above the keyboard. The message was simple, sterile, and sharp. You're next. No name, no signature, just those 2 words. He looked around the shared workspace. Sunlight spilling through tall windows, volunteers laughing over coffee, Ava typing furiously in the corner with her headphones on. The Breakroom project buzzed with life, progress, hope, and someone wanted it dead. He slipped the phone into his pocket and quietly stepped into the hallway. His breath fogged slightly in the late autumn air as he dialed. Maxwell answered on the second ring. I got a message, Liam said. Anonymous. Same tone as what Clara got before the apartment surveillance. This time it's aimed at me. A pause, then Maxwell's voice low and serious. Where are you right now? At the Breakroom building. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Maxwell didn't waste a second. By the time he pulled up in a discreet black sedan, He was already on a call with his head of security. They'd set up background tracing, scanned Liam's phone, and activated 2 surveillance sweeps at the community center. All within an hour. Inside, Clara stood with Vanessa reviewing employment templates for incoming reinstatements. When she saw Maxwell walk in with Liam, her face tightened. What happened? Liam handed her his phone. Clara read the message once, then twice. Her lips thinned into a line. They're still watching us. Vanessa leaned forward. We're beyond scare tactics now. This is about control. The more public we get, the more desperate they'll become. Maxwell looked at them all. There's something I haven't told you, he said, about the company, about the shareholders. Clara's gaze sharpened. You mean the ones who've stayed silent while women were fired and buried in paperwork? Some of them weren't silent, Maxwell said. Some of them designed it, he paced. Ashcroft isn't entirely mine anymore. We went public 10 years ago. I'm still the face, the CEO, but I only hold 32% of the shares. Douglas, he's not just a disgraced exec. He's connected to 3 major private investors with board seats. They protected him, and in return, he kept profits flowing by cutting down costs where no one would fight back. Like single mothers, Clara said bitterly. Exactly. Vanessa folded her arms. If they're still backing him, we're going to face more than messages. They'll try to dismantle this program. Maybe the entire company, Maxwell nodded. Which is why I'm stepping down. Silence dropped like a brick. What? Clara said. You can't, Liam added. You just started cleaning up the mess. I know, Maxwell said, and I'll finish that. But the company needs a new face. One that isn't connected to what happened. Someone the public can believe in. He looked at Clara. Her eyes widened. No, don't even say it. You already run a team, he said. You know the pain at the ground level. You've lived through it. You've stood your ground. You have earned this. I'm not a CEO, she protested. You are, Vanessa said softly. You just never had the office. Eva had stepped into the room at some point unnoticed. She stood in the doorway, backpack slung over one shoulder, eyes wide as she took in the scene. You'd be amazing, she said, voice quiet but clear. Clara looked at her daughter, then back at Maxwell. Give me a day, she said. Let me think. Maxwell nodded. It's yours to take. That night, Clara and Eva sat on their tiny balcony, knees covered with a shared blanket. The city stretched before them, glowing, restless. Clara held a mug of tea. Eva leaned on her shoulder. Are you scared? Eva asked. Clara sipped, terrified. You've already done the impossible. Clara smiled, but it was tinged with doubt. If I take this, they'll come after me even harder. They already did, Eva said. And they lost. That hit Clara deep. She looked at her daughter. Not just the brave girl who stood up for her, but the one who'd quietly learned, grown, built something strong from scraps. I used to think surviving was enough, Clara said. But maybe we get to dream bigger now, Eva smiled. The next morning, Clara walked into Ashcroft Tower. Not as a dismissed staffer, not as a visitor, but as a woman stepping into history. Maxwell greeted her at the elevator. Well, he asked. Clara extended her hand. I'll take the job, but on one condition. Name it. I picked my team. I answer to the mission, not the money. Maxwell grinned. You're going to shake everything up. I hope so. That afternoon, Clara stood before the press. Vanessa at her side, Eva and Liam just off stage. Reporters packed the room. Cameras flashed. She stepped up to the podium. My name is Clara Jennings, she began. I was fired from this company without dignity, without explanation, and without justice. And now I've been asked to lead it. I'm not here for a redemption arc. I'm here to rebuild. With empathy, with transparency, and with the belief that no one should be punished for being a mother, or poor, or principled. The applause came slowly at first, then all at once. Later that evening, Liam received another message. She won't last, and neither will you. He didn't flinch. He forwarded it straight to federal investigators. Let them try, because this time, the fight wasn't happening in the shadows. It was out in the open. And Clara Jennings was leading the charge. 3 weeks into her new role as interim CEO, Clara stood alone in her glass-walled office. An office once occupied by Maxwell Ashcroft, now stripped of its steel-cold minimalism and replaced with soft textures, real plants, and a coffee pot that didn't require a fingerprint scan to operate. Below her, the city breathed in waves of motion and noise. But up here, Clara felt the stillness of altitude and the weight of responsibility. She had hired 6 of the 18 wrongfully terminated employees back into leadership roles, despite murmurs from the board. She'd tripled the maternity care budget, and most controversial of all, she'd opened the executive budget books to public audit. It was all part of her promise: empathy, transparency, change. But now came the hard part. Ava sat in the visitor chair across the room, sketching app layouts in her notebook. Clara smiled at her between calls, occasionally reaching over to sip cold coffee. These days they didn't get much time together, but when they did, they made it count. The elevator chimed. Angela Choi stepped in with urgency in her stride, a laptop under one arm. "We have a problem," she said. Clara straightened. "What kind?" Angela opened the laptop and pulled up a press release. It hadn't gone live yet, but it was scheduled. Whistleblower CEO accused of manipulating records to secure executive role. Clara's breath caught. Who's behind this? Angela zoomed in on the metadata. Authored by M. Lowe, Martin Lowe, one of the oldest board members, a quiet supporter of Douglas Fairbanks, an old-school tactician who didn't believe in diversity hires, worker councils, or wage transparency. Clara felt heat rise in her chest. "He's coming for my credibility." Angela nodded grimly. "He's already scheduled interviews with 2 networks. This release is timed to go live an hour before your keynote tomorrow." Clara leaned back, thinking hard. What's his angle? He's claiming you manufactured your severance story to gain sympathy and control of the company, that you and Maxwell orchestrated it. Clara's mouth tightened. "And what evidence does he have?" Angela hesitated. "He bribed someone in IT to forge internal timestamps and pull private emails between you and Maxwell during your transition period." Out of context, it looks cozy. Clara stood furious. It wasn't cozy, it was strategic. "We were trying to dismantle a broken system." Angela nodded. "I know that. But the public won't, not if he controls the narrative." Clara looked out the window. She didn't cry. She didn't flinch. She planned. "Then we get ahead of it." Angela blinked. "You want to go public?" "No," Clara said. "I want to open the door and let them see the whole house." That evening, in the community center office upstairs from the break room project, Liam tapped through a new UI mock-up. Ava watched, then pointed at the top corner. "Make the Submit Testimony button brighter," she said. "And add a tab for verified press resources." He nodded. "You'd make a terrifying project manager." "I'm just warming up." His phone buzzed. He frowned at the screen. "Clara wants to live stream tonight." He nodded. "She says we go first, before Lowe. We tell everything." An hour later, a small makeshift studio was set up in the break room workspace. A microphone, a mounted camera, one desk, no fancy lights, no teleprompters, just Clara. The stream launched with a modest audience. By the 15-minute mark, it was trending. By the end, it had gone global. Clara didn't read from notes. She didn't point fingers. She spoke. "I was fired by a system that saw me as disposable, but I didn't stay quiet. I spoke out. Not for revenge, but for change. Since then, I've seen resistance from those who profit from silence. I've been threatened, watched, lied about, and now smeared." She leaned forward, eyes piercing the lens. "So here's the truth. Every document I exposed is real. Every testimony is documented. Every rehire and reform came from real people demanding better. And the ones trying to stop us? They're not afraid of me. They're afraid of what I represent." She paused. Hope. Thousands watched. And somewhere across the city, Martin Lowe cursed and threw a tumbler of scotch at the wall. His press release was dead on arrival. Over the next 24 hours, Clara received over 4,000 emails. Support, job applications, whistleblower lead. It was the connection she needed. At dawn, Clara stood at Maxwell's doorstep. He opened the door, bleary-eyed, holding a cup of black coffee. "I didn't expect you this early," he said. "We have one more move to make," she replied. He stepped aside. "Come in." Later that day, in a sleek federal building in Lower Manhattan, Clara, Maxwell, Angela, and Vanessa sat across from an investigator with a badge and a recorder. They brought documents. They brought timelines. They brought names. Clara's voice never once wavered. By the time they left the building, The Department of Labor had officially opened a case into Ashcroft Industries' past misconduct, dating back 15 years. And Douglas Fairbanks? An arrest warrant was issued for him at 3:27 p.m. By 4:10. He was in handcuffs. When the news hit, Ava stood on a folding chair in the break room lounge, holding her phone above her head. "Mom!" she shouted. "They got him." The room erupted. Cheers, clapping, tears. And Clara? She just stood there in the middle of it all, smiling faintly. But even in that moment of justice, she knew something else was coming. Because people like Fairbanks didn't build these systems alone. They had help, they had shadows, and one of those shadows was still out there, watching. Waiting. It was nearly midnight when the knock. Clara sat alone in her apartment. No longer the crumbling one-bedroom in the Bronx, but a modest two-bedroom uptown that still smelled of paint and possibility. Ava was asleep, curled up in her room, math notes scattered beside her like fallen leaves. Clara opened the door to find a courier in a black jacket holding a thin envelope. He said nothing, just handed it to her, nodded once, and disappeared down the hall. Clara turned it over. No name, no return address. She opened it slowly. Inside was a single piece of paper, typed, centered, plain. "You've started a war you're not equipped to finish. Walk away or everything you've built burns with you." Her hands trembled, not with fear, but with rage. She stood there for a long time before picking up her phone and calling Maxwell. He answered instant. "Tell me you didn't get one too," he said. "I did," Clara replied. Same threat, almost word for word. They sat in silence on either end of the call. "We exposed Fairbanks," Clara said. "So who's left?" Maxwell sighed. "The ones above him," she frowned. "There's someone above Douglas Fairbanks." "There's always someone above the loudest guy in the room," he said. "Douglas built the system, but someone funded it, protected it. And that person isn't in the building, they're behind it." Clara exhaled. "Then we find them." "No," Maxwell said. "We make them come to us." The next day, a press conference was announced. Clara would be introducing the final phase of the break room project. National expansion. It was ambitious. But Clara knew ambition was exactly what scared the shadows most. The conference was held in the newly renovated Ashcroft Annex, a space she'd reclaimed and repurposed as a think tank for ethical business. Ava sat in the front row beside Liam and Vanessa. Maxwell stood behind the curtain, letting her take the stage alone. And Clara stood there, tall and calm, in a black blazer with no jewelry. Only the pin Ava had made her from recycled plastic when she was 10. "I was never meant to be here," she said. "That's what the people in power thought. That's what they counted on. But here I am, and here we stay." She clicked a remote. A screen behind her lit up, dozens of dots scattered across a map of the US pilot programs. Partnerships, grassroots accelerators, all under the breakroom banner. But that wasn't the announcement. Not really. The final phase, Clara said, is not just growth. It's protection. She paused. "We are officially launching the Breakroom Whistleblower Network, a secure, legal, and fully independent infrastructure for employees in every industry to report abuse, wage theft, harassment, and suppression. Without fear of retaliation." Gasps. Cameras flashed. Journalists leaned forward. Clara continued. "This network will partner with federal and state agencies. It will be backed by legal professionals like Vanessa Haynes, and it will be open-sourced with community input. We're not waiting for justice to trickle down. We're building it from the ground up." In the crowd, someone stood abruptly. A man in a suit. He walked out mid-speech. Security followed him. Maxwell, watching from the wings, caught a glimpse of the man's face, and something in his expression twisted. "That was one of our shadow investors," he said to Angela, who was already moving to intercept. Back on stage, Clara stood motionless, letting the crowd settle. And then she said the final words of her speech. "To anyone still trying to threaten us, silence us, or bury us, just remember, you're standing on ground we built with our own hands. We're not walking away. We're making room." That night, after the conference ended, Clara, Ava, Liam, Vanessa, and Maxwell gathered on the roof of the breakroom building. The city below glowed like a living thing. The wind carried the sharp edge of winter, but no one noticed. They sat in folding chairs, passing around warm cups of cider. Vanessa toasted. To the girl who got fired and fired back, they clinked. Ava raised her cup. To moms who never gave up, even when the world told them to. They clinked again. Liam held up his own, smirking. To the guy who sent the first anonymous folder. I think he did okay, more laughter. Maxwell, unusually quiet, just raised his glass and said, to what comes next? They all looked at Clara. She smiled. To everyone still out there feeling small. You're not. You were never small. They just made the walls tall enough to convince you otherwise. She leaned back in her chair, gazing up at the sky. They forgot one thing, she whispered. Ava looked over. What? Clara closed her eyes, the wind in her hair. Her voice like steel wrapped in velvet. Mothers don't burn.